Having a look now at your forecast for the northern Avalon. A few showers overnight tonight, a high of 18. Fog, winds at 50. The rain should end around lunchtime in central with winds at 30. Fog tonight.
When there's a passing in your family, you don't need to be worried about sudden expenses and decision making. East Haven Funeral Home is available to talk to you about pre-need funerals. All arrangements can be made in advance on the south and southwest coast. A guiding light in your time of need.
It means the opening up of this great island, connection with the neighboring continent, increase of population, the conversion of the country into a hive of industry, social advance to which no limits can be set.
Those visionary pictures of unbounded prosperity and cessation of pauperism described by railway enthusiasts amongst us as the inevitable consequence of the work, and the statements that those holding adverse views are only standing in the way of the people obtaining food is all claptrap and nonsense, calculated to lead the country astray, make them discontented with their present lot, unsettle their minds, and make them worse off than they were before. The measure is far too important to be decided upon by the members of the House, and the electorate should therefore be appealed to before such a wholesale deal be consummated for such an ill-digested piece of legislation.
The railway has always been a losing venture from its inception because traffic was too light, train load was too low on account of heavy grades, light engines, light rail, and bridges. Rates were too low. Branch lines were built without any hope of remunerative traffic. Agencies were maintained when not warranted by business conditions. Labor and material costs increased tremendously, whereas freight rates have remained nearly stationary.
In May of 1922, the Reeds shut down the railway for a week, stating that they could no longer afford to pay their workers.
Flickered around him, no blankets there to fold, nothing but the howling wind and the driving rain so cold. When he heard a whistle blowing in a dreamy
On the 12th of December 1985, a chartered Douglas DC-8 of US soldiers who had been on a peacekeeping mission in the Sinai made a refueling stop in Gander. The plane crashed. All 256 people on board were killed. Presumed cause, ice on the wings. Gander became the biggest airport in the world, built in 1936. In the Second World War, more than 20,000 fighter planes flew from the USA to Europe. Fueling stop in Gander. 20,000 US Air Force lived around the airbase. After the war, it became the hub of commercial aviation. The DC-4's Stratocruisers soon became outmoded. In 1964, the Eastern Bloc countries, 60 Aeroflot flights per week to communist Cuba. Communist rulers were the new VIPs, but their subjects saw an opportunity to escape. The passengers always came into the terminal. He or she could go to a member of the security staff and simply say the words, "Save me," asking for political asylum.
Delta Mike 6927 Gander, you can report flight level 280 with me on this frequency when you are level.
On the 11th of September 2001, after the terrorist attacks, 39 aircraft were diverted to Gander.
Bring peace, joy, and happiness to their listeners.
10,000 watts of power sends a clear signal to a wide area of Newfoundland.
Indescribable feeling of well-being after 2.5 years of fighting for Confederation. Yes, a feeling of great satisfaction. We look upon Canada as a great nation.
Aren't there a great many people in Newfoundland who don't feel the way you do about Confederation?
You're afraid Canada may have caught a tiger by the tail. Within a year of union, there will be no people in Canada happier to be in Confederation than the people of Newfoundland. There's been a growing feeling in the country. We might survive, but never prosper in isolation. After struggling along for 4.5 centuries, our cost of living will be reduced. We won't have to go on paying a tariff on Canadian imports. 327,000 will provide a new market for Canadian goods. We'll buy everything we can possibly consume which is raised or made in Canada. I do hope that Gordon Bradley may come to Ottawa to represent Newfoundland. I hope to enter the provincial field. We've fought now for 2.5 years, and now we've won. It's a great moment.
Profile of Hank Snow, his maritime roots in Canada, and how a Canadian boy made good.
The victim of a broken home at the age of 8. My 3 sisters went to an orphanage. My grandmother and granddad took me under their wings until at the age of 12, I started sailing the seas.
He went to sea at 12 years of age on a fishing schooner. He'd cut cod tongues.
I earned some money. I bought my own guitar. I remember it was a T. Eaton Special, $5.95.
We used to listen on the old radio. It seemed like a million miles away, and my dad would say, one of these days I'm going to make it to the Grand Ole Opry.
Here's Hank Snow and the Rainbow Ranch Boys. That big 8-wheeler rolling down the track means to loving Daddy ain't coming back, 'cause I'm moving on. I'm rolling on. You were flying too high for my little old sky, so I'm moving on. Flying the big loud whistle as a blue and blue, said hello to the Southland, we're coming to you when we're moving on. We're rolling on. You had to laugh at me, but I've set you free and I'm moving on. Robert. Fireman, won't you please listen to me, 'cause I got a pretty mama in Tennessee. Keep moving me on, keep rolling on. So shovel the coal in this rattle a roll and keep moving me on. Mr. Engineer, take the throttle in hand. This rattle of the fastest in the southern land. Keep moving me on, keep rolling on. You're gonna ease my mind, but me there on time and keep rolling on. Let's pick, Chet. I've warned you, baby, from time but you just wouldn't listen to pay me no mind. I'm moving on, I'm rolling on. You broke and you found it's all over now, so I'm moving on. You switch your end tonight, got time for a private woman on my main line, 'cause I'm moving on. Daddy wrong. I've wanted twice and you can settle the price, 'cause I'm moving on. Jimmy Crawford. Someday, baby, when you've had your play, you're gonna watch your daddy, but your daddy will say, keep moving on. You stayed away too long. I'm through with you, too bad you're blue, keep moving on.
Since we became a province of Canada, in those 31 years as Premier, I was able to build 5,000 miles of new roads in Newfoundland, pave 2,000, build 1,000 new schools, a great new university, College of Technology, Fisheries and Navigation, 18 new trade schools, 28 new hospitals, and I don't remember how many new parks and campsites, all of it built with Ottawa money. If these things had not been done, our population today, a little over 500,000 people, would be way below 250,000 people, because all the Queen's horses and all the Queen's men would not have been able to keep our people here.
Yes, you would. Like you would. Like you would. Like you would.
You go east, your next stop is Ireland. Ireland? We're not going there today.
From this nation, by sheer starvation, I now must leave you, dear Newfoundland. Newfoundland, have I got to leave you for the seek employment? Newfoundland, with your fishery failing, your sons and daughters must leave Newfoundland.
I'm a Newfoundlander. Canada's up there on the mainland, and it can stay up there, as far as I'm concerned.
It became so very emotional. To a lot of people, it meant that their nation was in fact under threat. By the 1940s, Newfoundland had developed a distinct society, a distinct character. There had been very widespread hostility to Confederation for many years, and particularly in the east of the island, people thought of themselves as Newfoundlanders who were sort of oriented to an Atlantic economy, continental North Americans. But on the other side, there were those who looked at Newfoundland's past and who said, well, look, we were not very well served by independence. Look at the Depression, look at the political scandals, look at the Commission of Government. Our past isn't a glorious past. It's a past of sort of poverty and of hardship, and we have to escape that through Confederation.
Say fish, we mean cod. Everything that you need to know about someone from here, you can figure it out by just studying that lowly fish. It's actually quite a noble fish. It asks very little and gives so much. They exist on almost anything. I mean, I think a cod could eat a rubber boot if it had to. But one day in particular, he came back with one fish. And he brought the fish into the house and he slapped it down onto the kitchen floor and said, well, it's done. And it was the next day he burned his boat. He did it as a statement of pain and anger. Fogo is the Portuguese word for fire, nothing to do with fog, and it's not that foggy there. We say it's far away from far away. I was really born into what was the 19th century. People had a deep sense of ecological logic and social logic. There was no money at all. We worked in what's called the truck system, which means that we traded our fish for the things we couldn't fish or hunt or grow on our own. So we really didn't have a big concept of money. And then arrived the 20th century. We were inshore fishing people, and then these enormous factory trawlers arrived from every country on the planet. And my father finally said, they must be turning the fish into money. And he followed it with, you better grow up and figure out how this money system works, because it's going to eat everything we love. A small island is particularly difficult to explain how people attach to it. It's sort of a comprehensible totality. You can know it. You can spend a lifetime, generations trying to know it more. So I didn't want to leave. So when I left home in 1975 to go to university in Ontario, everybody of my parents' generation said, oh, you're going up to Canada. I didn't have a concept that I would come back. I went to study business, as my dad had said I should, and I didn't think there'd be an opportunity to come back, because when I left in the mid-70s, the fishery was still on the downcline, and so I didn't think going home would be a possibility. I really worked in fiber optic. Being a sane person, I took the money and I went home, and I did what my father told me to do, which is when he said they must be turning the fish into money, well then we should be able to turn money into fish. How do we use money to strengthen community economies so we can give cultures a chance to carry on? Isn't a Fogo Islander that it feels they need saving? They can save themselves. I mean, we still have a fishery, and it's the most important thing on our island, is our relationship with the sea. The fishery is essential, but it's not enough for every kid that's coming out of that high school, and it's not enough to keep the population engaged and sort of forward moving. How do we grow another leg on the economy that strengthens culture, owned by the community? Because Fogo Island is a hotbed of community ownership. Positive Cooperative, which owns the 3 fish processing plants. What do we have? What do we know? What do we love? What do we miss? And what can we do about it? And when you think about hospitality, how do you feed people? How do you put them to bed? It starts to give rise to other forms of economy. There's a furniture business and a textile business, and it's like pulling a thread on a sweater, and before you know it, you got to keep going and you got to knit a new sweater. A meaningful transformation to the economy of Fogo Island. The first thing about tourism, it's a dance with the devil. Scale has to be appropriate to the size of the community, and it can't be your only industry, because otherwise you'll have your granny selling trinkets on the corner. We're only 2,500 people. We can only love so many people at a time. Prime numbers, because it's open, right? There's always room for someone else. As my mother used to say, it's always better to see a light coming into the harbour than a light going out. If you make a 29-room inn on Fogo Island, no negative externalities on the environment or on the community. We have a very successful fishery. That's not something to be taken for granted. Well, as my friend Pete Decker says, I'll be done when they pat me on the belly with the shovel. No, I won't be done until the road ends. The most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. Oh Lord, help me, because the ocean is so big and my boat is so small.